You're welcome to Law and Property with Dr. Prince Joel, your real estate investment coach. On this channel, you will be learning everything you need to know about real estate transactions, investment, due diligence, and management. If these interest you, please do well by subscribing. Still in our series on real estate documentation, today we will be looking at tenancy agreements. What is tenancy agreement? Tenancy agreement is that contract between the landlord and the tenant, spelling out their obligations. The obligation of the tenant, the obligation of the landlord. It's usually an agreement of 2 years. When it is more than 2 years, it becomes a lease agreement. So a lease agreement is that agreement between the lessor and the lessee above 3 years that spells out the duties of the lessor, the owner of the property, and the lessee, the one renting the property, for a duration more than 3 years. Let's look at the content of a tenancy agreement and lease agreement. Number one, description of parties. The parties in either of these agreements must be well spelled out. The name, if it is a single individual, if they are couples, you must write it properly, the man and the woman's name. If it is a company, the name in which the company is registered should be used. The same applies to a lease agreement. If it is individual, it should be individual name. If it is company commercial, it should be the company's name. The address must be well stated, either for tenancy agreement or for lease agreement. The description must be holistic. The successor in title is also very important. Those who will succeed in the event of the unexpected. The same applies to the lease agreement. So whether it's the heirs, executors, if it is a company. Successors in title must also be stated, whether they are legal person, administrators, administratress, as the case may be. Term in terms of number of years. If it is tenancy agreement, it must be stated for 2 years, commencing so date and ending so dates. If it is a lease agreement, it is 3 years and above. The commencement date and the expiry dates must be captured and well stated. Rent review clause. In a tenancy agreement, you must find a rent review clause. The same applies to a lease agreement because it helps the parties to know when to review the rent. It helps the tenant to plan when the rent will be reviewed. The same applies to the landlord. It helps in resolving disputes because it has been agreed from the beginning, signed from the beginning, and so when that time comes, it becomes very easy to implement the new rents. Duration and commencement dates. In a tenancy agreement or a lease agreement, you must find the duration well spelled out, whether it's for 1 year or whether it's for 2 years. Remember that when it's a tenancy agreement, it is a duration maximum period of 2 years. That's tenancy agreement. When it is lease agreement, it is 3 years and above. Also take note that every state have their own tenancy law. In Lagos State, the tenancy law of Lagos State spells out the duration. So a tenancy can be 1 year, can be 2 years, they must not be more than 2 years. Commencement date must also be well spelled out. So if your tenancy starts on the 1st of August, it expires on the 31st of July. The same thing applies to a lease agreement. The commencement date is very, very important. The description of the property and the use of the property. It is important to find in a tenancy agreement the description of the property. Is it a 2-bedroom apartment? Is it a 5-bedroom duplex? However the property is must be well described. Is it for residential purpose or is it for commercial purpose? The same applies if it is a lease agreement. All these must be well spelled out in any of these agreements. Consideration. When you say consideration, I mean the price, the rent. The amount in which you have rented the property must be well stated in a tenancy agreement. Same with a lease agreement. It must be stated in word and in figure. The covenant. The landlord has a covenant and the tenant has a covenant. The question is, what is covenant? Covenant, basically, agreements to fulfill certain obligations. So the tenant will covenant to pay rent as at when due, will covenant to use the property for a specific reason or specific use. All those things that a tenant must do will come in form of covenant. The same thing with the landlord. The landlord must covenant not to interfere, to allow the tenant to enjoy the property, peaceful enjoyment of the property. That's the covenant. The landlord has his, the tenant has his. You'll find the additional terms, additional agreement, where parties spell out who takes care of service charge, utility bills, NEPA bills, every other bills within, as may be agreed by the parties. Signature and witness. In every tenancy agreement, same with lease agreement, it must be properly signed. If it is an individual, it must be signed by the individual. If it is a company, the common seal of the company must be seen to have been signed on the document. Same applies to a lease agreement. It must have a witness. Somebody who witnessed the transaction must also endorse it. The person's name, occupation, phone number, and proper signing. Now you know the difference between tenancy agreement and lease agreements. I have a book called Compilation of Articles on Law and Property in Nigeria, Simplified. This book is loaded. It has information on real estate transactions, documentations, due diligence, investment, general information that will help you in the real estate business. Grab a copy of this book. More details you'll find at the description box. Also, to contact me, you find my details at the description box. I remain Dr. Prince Joel, your favorite real estate investment coach. Till I come your way next time, stay blessed.